Nexus 7, the galaxy's deadliest planet, was a radioactive hellscape of toxic air, earthquakes, and lifeless desolation, until the Elysian scout ship detected the impossible, thriving infrastructure on the lethal surface, built by none other than humans themselves. For the Elysian xenobiologist Antares, it was unthinkable. No sentient life should have survived the deadly conditions of Nexus 7. As Antares guided the expedition down to the surface, anticipation and disbelief wrestled in his mind. The scans had to be wrong. But they weren't. What Antares and his team found was beyond belief, a highly advanced human colony, led by the resilient and resourceful former Earth commander, Daniel Russell. The planet's very environment that should have killed them had instead been harnessed by the humans, its unique and deadly resources now powering a self-sufficient society light years ahead of anything the Elysians had predicted possible. When Earth began to wither and die under the weight of war and pollution, we refused to die with it, Daniel explained, leading an awestruck Antares through the colony's humming power cores and gleaming hab structures. We took our fate into our own hands. We ventured into the void, knowing it was our only chance. And when we found this planet, when we found Nexus 7, we knew we could tame it. We re-engineered our own genes. We rebuilt our own bodies to survive its atmosphere, its radiation. And we turned a planet that should have been our grave into our greatest triumph. But as Antares learned more about the humans' capabilities, their strength even in the face of near-certain death, a cold sense of dread began to grip him. The Elysians had come to Nexus 7 to colonize it for themselves, to strip it of resources. But now, the humans stood in their way. Humans that, against all odds, may be strong enough to stop them. Antares could see the same fears reflected in Daniel's eyes as they sized each other up. A dawning realization of what the other's presence could mean. For Daniel and his colony, it could mean slavery under Elysian rule, or total annihilation. And if the Elysians couldn't take Nexus 7 for themselves, their empire's expansion may crumble completely. When Antares warned the Elysian High Command of the risk the humans posed, their response was instantaneous and non-negotiable. The colony was to be subdued and the planet taken at all costs. But as Daniel began to bolster his people's defenses, Antares started to wonder if the cost might be too high, and if, for once, the Elysians may have encountered a force they cannot defeat. On Nexus 7, a storm was brewing. The humans had clawed a home from the jaws of the galaxy's most lethal planet, and they would not let it be taken from them, not without a fight that could shape the fate of the galaxy itself. Antares knew he had to act fast. The weight of the Elysian bioweapon's destructive potential hung heavy on his shoulders as he slipped away from the Elysian encampment under the cover of Nexus 7's toxic night. The planet's corrosive atmosphere stung his eyes and lungs even through his protective gear, but he pushed forward, driven by a newfound sense of purpose. He found Daniel in the heart of the human colony, hunched over a holographic display of their defenses. The human commander looked up as Antares entered, his expression guarded. "What are you doing here, Elysian?" Daniel demanded, his hand resting on the hilt of his plasma pistol. Antares raised his hands in a gesture of peace. "I come with a warning, Commander Russell. The Elysian High Command plans to unleash a bioweapon on Nexus 7, one that will target your genetically modified physiology and make this planet's environment lethal to you once again." Daniel's eyes widened, a flicker of fear passing over his features before hardening into persistence. He barked orders into his comm device, his voice urgent. "Initiate cloaking protocol Alpha 6. Activate all defensive systems and prepare for imminent attack." Around them, the colony burst into activity. The hum of machinery filled the air as advanced weaponry emerged from hidden caches, powered by the unique elements the humans had harvested from Nexus 7's crust. Shimmering energy fields enveloped the settlements, masking them from the Elysian scanners high above. Antares watched in awe as the humans mobilized with practiced efficiency, a testament to their unyielding willpower to survive. He knew he had to buy them more time. Returning to the Elysian fleet, Antares strode into the command center, his heart pounding. The High Commander turned to face him, impatience etched into his angular features. Xenobiologist Antares, what is the status of the ground assault? Antares took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. High Commander, I must advise against this invasion. The humans pose no threat to our empire. Their technology and adaptations are purely defensive, designed to ensure their survival on this hostile world. A peaceful coexistence could be mutually beneficial, opening up new avenues for trade and scientific exchange. The High Commander's eyes narrowed. You dare question the will of the Elysian Empire? The humans are a potential threat, one we must eliminate before they grow too powerful. You will lead the assault as planned, xenobiologist. Failure to comply will be considered an act of treason. Antares clenched his fists, realizing that diplomacy had failed. As the Elysian troops descended upon Nexus 7, he knew what he had to do. The battle raged across the planet's surface. The Elysian forces met with fierce resistance at every turn. Daniel led his troops in a series of hit-and-run attacks, using the planet's treacherous terrain to their advantage. Energy weapons flashed through the toxic haze, the humans' advanced tech proving more than a match for the Elysian arsenal. Antares made his way to the bioweapons storage pod, his heart racing. With trembling hands, he input a sequence of commands, overriding the weapon's containment failsafes. The pod hissed open, revealing rows of innocuous-looking canisters. Antares worked quickly, removing the canister's control chips and crushing them beneath his boot. As the battle intensified, Antares sought out Daniel, dodging energy blasts and shrapnel. He found the human commander pinned down behind a ruined hab structure, his troops fighting valiantly to hold the line. I've sabotaged the bioweapon, Antares shouted over the din of battle. It won't be a threat to your people now. Daniel nodded grimly, a flicker of gratitude in his eyes. Then we stand a chance, but we need to find a way to end this conflict before it's too late. Antares crouched beside him, his mind racing. The Elysian High Command won't back down, not unless they face a threat greater than the one they perceive from your colony. What do you propose? Daniel asked, his brow furrowed. Antares hesitated, the weight of his next words heavy on his tongue. We need to show them the true power of Nexus 7, the power your people have harnessed. If we can demonstrate that the planet itself is a force to be reckoned with, one that even the Elysian Empire cannot control, they may be forced to negotiate. Daniel's eyes widened, understanding dawning on his features. The seismic resonators. We've been using them to stabilize the planet's crust, but if we recalibrate them, we could trigger a controlled series of quakes, ones that will shake the Elysian forces to their core, Antares finished, a grim smile tugging at his lips. It's a risky gambit, Daniel warned. If we miscalculate, we could destabilize the entire planet. Antares met his gaze, dedication burning in his eyes. It's a risk we have to take, for the sake of both our peoples. As the battle raged on around them, Daniel and Antares set to work, their fingers flying over the resonator controls. The ground beneath their feet began to tremble, the planet's fury awakening at their command. The Elysian troops stumbled and fell, their formation shattering as Nexus 7 itself seemed to rise up against them. In the chaos, Antares heard the crackle of his comm device, the High Commander's voice imbued with static and fear. Xenobiologist Antares, what have you done? The planet, it's tearing itself apart. Antares squared his shoulders, his voice steady as he replied. I've shown you the true power of Nexus 7, High Commander. The power the humans have learned to harness. If you continue this invasion, you risk losing everything. But if you're willing to negotiate, to find a peaceful solution, there may yet be hope for us all. The comm fell silent, the weight of Antares' words hanging in the air. Daniel placed a hand on his shoulder, a gesture of solidarity between two unlikely allies. Whatever happens, Daniel said softly, know that you've given us a fighting chance, a chance for a future beyond mere survival. Antares nodded, his heart full of a strange new emotion. Hope. Hope for a galaxy where the strength of the human spirit could coexist with the might of the Elysian Empire. Hope for a future forged in the crucible of Nexus 7, where even the most hostile of worlds could become a home. As the ground settled and the dust cleared, Antares and Daniel stood side by side, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The battle for Nexus 7 was just the beginning, but for the first time, the path to peace seemed within reach, if only they had the courage to walk it. Daniel Russell and Antares stood side by side in the colony's command center, their faces illuminated by the glow of holographic displays. The air hummed with tension as they finalized their audacious plan. "We hit them hard and fast," Daniel said, his voice low and intense. "Our cloaking tech will get us on board their flagship before they know what hit them." Antares nodded, his alien features set in grim concentration. "I know the layout. I can guide us to the bridge." Within hours, a sleek stealth shuttle sliced through the void of space, carrying Daniel, Antares, and a team of humanity's finest soldiers. The massive Elysian flagship loomed before them, oblivious to their approach. They docked with practiced precision. The moment the airlock hissed open, chaos erupted. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air as the human strike team engaged the Elysian guards. Daniel ducked and weaved, his genetically enhanced reflexes allowing him to dodge incoming fire with inhuman speed. Antares led the way, calling out directions as they fought their way through the ship's winding corridors. "Left here! Watch out for the security checkpoint!" The humans' advanced weaponry, born from Nexus 7's deadly resources, cut through Elysian defenses without difficulty. But the Elysians fought back fiercely, their superior numbers threatening to overwhelm the strike team. As they neared the bridge, alarms blared throughout the ship. A booming voice echoed over the intercom. "Initiate orbital bombardment! Wipe that human infestation from the face of Nexus 7! Daniel's blood ran cold. "We're out of time!" he growled. With a final push, they breached the bridge. In the ensuing firefight, consoles exploded in showers of sparks. Daniel tackled the Elysian admiral, pressing the barrel of his weapon against the alien's head. "Call off the attack!" Daniel snarled. "Now!" With trembling hands, the admiral complied. Antares quickly took control of the ship's communications array, broadcasting a message to the entire Elysian fleet. "This is xenobiologist Antares," he declared, his voice carrying the weight of truth. "The High Command plans to commit genocide against the human colony. I implore you, my fellow Elysians, to lay down your arms. These humans have done nothing to deserve annihilation." For long moments, silence reigned. Then, one by one, Elysian ships began to power down their weapons. The invasion force fractured as many officers, shaken by the revelation, refused to participate in mass murder. But not all were swayed. A furious voice cut through the comm channels. "This is Commander Zephyr. Antares is a traitor. I assume command of all loyal Elysian forces. We will carry out our orders and cleanse this planet of the human filth." Daniel and Antares watched in horror as a portion of the Elysian fleet, led by Zephyr's cruiser, broke formation and moved to attack. "Activate the colony's defenses!" Daniel barked into his communicator. "All hands to battle stations!" The skies above Nexus 7 erupted in a spectacular light show as human and loyalist Elysian ships engaged Zephyr's renegade forces. Explosions bloomed in the void, raining debris onto the planet's toxic surface. For days, the battle raged. The colony's orbital platforms spat superheated plasma at the attacking ships, while surface-to-space cannons lanced up from the ground. But Zephyr's forces fought with the desperation of fanatics, slowly pushing back the defenders. As the human colony's shields began to buckle under the relentless assault, Daniel turned to Antares, his face etched with weariness and worry. "We need to end this," he said, "before both our peoples are destroyed." Antares nodded solemnly. "I'll open a channel to Zephyr." The renegade commander's face appeared on the monitor, twisted with hatred. Daniel stepped forward, his voice firm despite his exhaustion. "Commander Zephyr, this madness has gone on long enough. We're offering you and your followers safe passage off Nexus 7. End this attack, and you can leave in peace." Zephyr's response was immediate and venomous. "Peace? With you vermin? Never. We'll fight to the last ship, the last soldier. This planet will be your tomb. The transmission cut off abruptly. Daniel and Antares exchanged a grim look, knowing that the final confrontation was now inevitable. Alert all forces, Daniel commanded, his voice heavy with the weight of impending battle. Zephyr's leaving us no choice. Prepare for a final push. As klaxons blared throughout the human colony and the remaining Elysian ships, Daniel and Antares steeled themselves for the climactic struggle that would determine the fate of both their peoples on the unforgiving world of Nexus 7. Daniel and Antares huddled over the holographic display, their faces illuminated by the flickering blue light of Zephyr's massive dreadnought. The behemoth loomed before them, its weapon systems pummeling the human colony's defenses. There, Antares said, his long finger tracing the outline of the ship's core. The antimatter reactor. It's their weak point. Daniel nodded, his fists tight. We take that out. We end this war. He tapped his comm unit. Captain Keller, report to the command center immediately. Minutes later, Marcus strode in, his face grim and determined. Daniel laid out the plan, detailing the stealth shuttle and the explosive device they'd use to cripple Zephyr's flagship. It's a one-way trip, sir, Marcus said, his voice steady. Then we better make it count, Daniel replied, clapping him on the shoulder. The strike team assembled in the underground hangar, checking their gear one last time. The sleek black shuttle hummed to life, its cloaking systems engaging with a shimmer. Godspeed, Daniel's voice crackled over the comm as the hangar doors slid open. The shuttle shot into the chaos of the battle, weaving between debris and energy blasts. On the captured Elysian flagship's bridge, Daniel and Antares sprang into action. All power to forward shields, Daniel barked. Weapons target Zephyr's escort ships. Let's give him something to think about. The flagship surged forward, its guns blazing. Zephyr's forces scattered, caught off guard by the sudden assault. Meanwhile, Marcus and his team slipped past the distracted enemy fleet. They latched onto Zephyr's dreadnought, cutting through the hull with plasma torches. Inside, they moved swiftly through the corridors, their weapons at the ready. An Elysian patrol rounded the corner, and the air filled with the sizzle of energy weapons. Marcus dropped 2 guards with pinpoint shots, while his team neutralized the rest. We're in, Marcus whispered into his comm, moving to the reactor core. They fought their way deeper into the ship, leaving a trail of stunned and incapacitated Elysians in their wake. As they neared the core, a massive blast door blocked their path. Suddenly it hissed open. Zephyr himself stood there, flanked by his elite guard. Humans, he spat, his voice dripping with contempt. You dare invade my ship? Marcus charged forward, catching Zephyr off guard. They grappled furiously, trading blows as chaos erupted around them. Zephyr's strength was incredible, but Marcus fought with the desperation of a man with everything to lose. Just as Zephyr pinned Marcus to the ground, the ship's alarms blared. Antares' voice echoed through the corridors. Security override complete. Reactor core access granted. Marcus seized the moment, breaking free from Zephyr's grasp. He and his team sprinted for the reactor, Zephyr hot on their heels. Inside the core chamber, Marcus armed the explosive device, his hands steady despite the madness unfolding around him. Zephyr burst in, his face contorted with rage. You'll die here, human, he roared, lunging at Marcus. They collided in a fury of fists and feet. Marcus felt ribs crack under Zephyr's onslaught, but he fought on. With a final, desperate move, he slammed his palm down on the detonator. The device beeped to life, its countdown beginning. Zephyr's eyes widened in horror. Fall back, Marcus yelled to his team. They retreated, dragging their injured leader with them. They raced through the ship's corridors, alarms blaring and crew members panicking. They reached their shuttle just as the first explosions rocked the dreadnought. As they pulled away, the antimatter reactor went critical. Zephyr's flagship tore itself apart in a spectacular blast of light and energy. The remaining renegade ships, leaderless and outgunned, quickly surrendered. The battle for Nexus 7 was over. In the colony's medical bay, Daniel and Antares stood over Marcus's bed, The captain was battered but alive, a wry smile on his face. "We did it, sir," he croaked. Daniel nodded, his eyes filled with a mix of pride and weariness. "We did. But now comes the hard part." He turned to Antares, who looked equally exhausted. "We've got a lot of work ahead of us, my friend. A whole new future to build." Antares nodded solemnly. "Indeed. But perhaps now both our peoples can face that future together." As the first rays of Nexus 7's alien sun peeked over the horizon, casting an eerie glow through the toxic atmosphere, Daniel and Antares prepared to face the challenges that lay ahead. The battle was won, but the struggle to forge a lasting peace between humans and Elysians was just beginning. The acrid stench of ozone and scorched metal hung in the air as Daniel Russell surveyed the aftermath of the battle. Twisted wreckage of Elysian ships littered the toxic landscape of Nexus 7. Human colonists worked alongside former enemy soldiers, clearing debris and tending to the wounded. Daniel turned to Antares, his alien features unreadable. "We won, but at what cost?" Antares' multifaceted eyes flickered. "The path to peace is never easy, my friend." Their conversation was cut short by an urgent comm signal. "Commander Russell, it's Marcus. His condition is critical." They rushed to the medical bay, Daniel's heart pounding. Marcus lay on a sterile bed, his body broken and battered. The hero who had struck the decisive blow against Zephyr's forces now fought for his life. For days, Daniel kept vigil at Marcus's bedside, but despite the advanced medical technology at their disposal, Marcus's injuries proved too severe. With a final, rattling breath, he slipped away. The colony mourned. Humans and Elysians alike gathered for the funeral, a somber affair held beneath the swirling, toxic clouds of Nexus 7. Antares stepped forward, his voice resonating as he recited ancient Elysian rites of passage. "Though our paths diverged, we honor a warrior of great courage," Antares intoned. "May Marcus Keller find peace among the stars." Daniel watched, a lump in his throat, as humans nodded in grudging respect. It was a small step, but a significant one. In the days that followed, Daniel and Antares worked tirelessly to forge a lasting peace. They sat across from Elysian diplomats, haggling over resource allocation and territorial boundaries. Progress was slow, tensions high. "The Nexus 7 colony will maintain full autonomy," Daniel insisted, his voice firm. An Elysian general scoffed. "You claim our rightful territory." A deafening explosion rocked the building, cutting off further debate. Alarms blared as Daniel and Antares raced to the command center. Reports flooded in, mining operations sabotaged, water supplies contaminated. "Sir, we're detecting an unknown bioweapon," a technician reported, fear evident in her voice. "It's targeting our genetically modified colonists." Daniel smacked his fist on the console. "Who's responsible for this?" Antares' eyes narrowed. "Orion, a brilliant tactician and a dangerous fanatic." Over the next weeks, Orion's attacks escalated. Colonists fell ill from tainted water. Vital equipment malfunctioned at crucial moments. Daniel and Antares worked around the clock, struggling to counter each new threat. During a rare moment of respite, Antares approached Daniel with grim news. "I've uncovered Orion's true plan. He intends to trigger a massive seismic event, wiping out the entire colony." Daniel's face hardened. "Then we stop him, gather our best team. We're going in." They assembled a strike force, equipping them with the latest human and Elysian hybrid technology. Daniel briefed the team, outlining their dangerous mission deep into Nexus 7's treacherous core. "Antares will guide us remotely," Daniel explained. "We locate Orion's seismic devices and shut them down. Failure is not an option." The team deployed, their shuttle skimming over Nexus 7's hostile terrain. Toxic geysers erupted around them as they navigated through narrow canyons. Antares' voice crackled over the comm, directing them through the perilous landscape. "The devices should be just ahead," Antares reported. "Be cautious. Orion will have—" His warning was cut short as energy blasts erupted from hidden emplacements. Daniel's team scattered, taking cover behind rocky outcroppings. The air filled with the sizzle of weapon fire and the acrid smell of ionized atmosphere. "It's an ambush!" Daniel shouted, returning fire. "Push forward! We have to reach those devices!" The firefight intensified. Daniel watched in horror as two of his team fell, their bodies smoldering from direct hits. He pressed on, desperation fueling his advance. In the chaos, Daniel found himself separated from the others. He sprinted through a narrow pass, emerging into a vast cavern. There, surrounded by pulsing machinery, stood Orion. The Elysian commander sneered. "So the human lapdog comes to heal." Daniel raised his weapon. "It's over, Orion. Shut it down." "Never," Orion spat. "This planet is ours. You humans are a pestilence to be purged." They clashed, a brutal hand-to-hand struggle. Orion's superior strength sent Daniel reeling, but the human's enhanced reflexes kept him in the fight. They traded blows, each impact echoing through the cavern. Daniel felt ribs crack under Orion's assault. He stumbled, his vision blurring. With a desperate lunge, he tackled Orion, sending them both crashing into the seismic device's control panel. Sparks flew as the machinery sputtered and died. Orion howled in rage, redoubling his attack. Daniel felt his strength fading, but he fought on, driven by the knowledge that the colony's survival hung in the balance. With a final Herculean effort, Daniel landed a crushing blow. Orion crumpled, unconscious. Daniel staggered to the control panel, fingers flying as he initiated the shutdown sequence. As the last device powered down, Daniel felt a searing pain in his abdomen. He looked down to see Orion's blade protruding from his chest. The Elysian commander grinned maliciously before collapsing. Daniel fell to his knees, blood pooling beneath him. He activated his comm unit, his voice weak. "And Terry, it's done. The devices are offline." He heard Antares' frantic voice, felt the Elysian's arms around him as his consciousness faded. Daniel looked up at his friend, his voice barely a whisper. "Promise me, protect them, the colony, our people." Antares nodded, his alien features etched with grief. "I swear it, my friend." With his last breath, Daniel spoke, his words carrying the weight of prophecy. "We'll never surrender. Nexus 7 is our home now. We'll fight to the last." As Daniel's eyes closed for the final time, Antares cradled his fallen comrade. The future of two species now rested on his shoulders, a burden he would bear in honor of the human who had taught him the true meaning of courage.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.